Major break in the case of a 7-month-old missing for more than a week now.
Filing in this case reflects our belief that baby Emanuel was abused, victim of child abuse over time, and that eventually, because of that abuse, he succumbed to those injuries.
Please return him. We just want him back.
A shocking prison confession. The father who begged the world to help find his missing baby has now admitted he was the one who killed him. It's just a baby.
It's just a baby. Just give our son back, please.
Whether you're a true crime junkie or someone who usually avoids these stories, this case has haunted people for one heartbreaking reason. It's not just about a child being taken or even murdered. It's about a parent, someone who should be a protector, lying to everyone's face, all while knowing the truth the whole time. Today, we're diving into the disturbing new updates surrounding the Emanuel Haro case and what really happened behind closed doors. But before that, let's rewind for a moment, because if you've missed this case, you need to understand what made it so devastating in the first place. Just 3 weeks ago, baby Emanuel Haro was alive, smiling, babbling, and learning how to sit up for the first time. At only 7 months old, he was entering that precious stage of infancy, when every giggle feels like magic and every tiny milestone feels like a miracle. His chubby fingers would reach for toys with curiosity, and his little face would light up every time his toddler sister played peekaboo. He lived with his parents, 41-year-old Rebecca Haro and 32-year-old Jake Mitchell Haro, in a modest single-story home nestled in Cabazon, California, a quiet desert community of just about 2,600 residents, where the biggest excitement might be a rare thunderstorm or the occasional backyard barbecue. It's the kind of place where families grow up knowing their neighbors, where children pedal their bikes until the streetlights gently cast long shadows, and where tragedies like this should never unfold. But on the evening of August 14th, 2025, at exactly 7:47 p.m., everything changed. Rebecca Haro placed a frantic 911 call to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department claiming her baby boy had just been kidnapped in broad daylight. According to Rebecca, she had been shopping with Emanuel at Big Five Sporting Goods on Yucaipa Boulevard. As she walked to her car, she said, stranger came out of nowhere, attacked her, and ripped her baby from her arms before vanishing into the night.
I was gonna get the diaper and somebody said, hola. And I didn't see nothing since. I woke up right here on the floor, and I didn't see Emanuel.
The kidnapping claim triggered immediate panic. News outlets quickly picked up the story. Flyers with Emanuel's photo were posted across town. On social media, people began sharing his image, hoping someone had seen him. Emanuel's father, Jake Haro, also gave interviews on local TV, pleading with the public to help find his missing son.
Whoever took my son, please return him. We just want him back. We won't do anything to you. We just give us our son. Just keep him safe. Don't hurt him. Make sure you feed him. Change him. Please.
Both Rebecca and Jake Haro were pleading like these on television and social media, begging the public to help find their missing son. Many viewers began to feel that something wasn't right.
It's just a baby. Just give our son back, please.
A desperate plea from the parents of 7-month-old Emanuel, now missing for more than 24 hours.
He was wearing a black onesie with a Nike swoosh.
They were saying all the things grieving parents were supposed to say. Their voices trembled, their lips quivered, and they wiped at their faces as if overwhelmed by emotion. But when people looked closer, their eyes didn't shed actual tears. Their expressions were filled with sorrow, yet their eyes remained dry. It was the kind of performance that made you stop and question. Not because it was obviously fake, but because something about it didn't feel right. And most disturbingly of all, they kept referring to baby Emanuel in the past tense, saying things like he was such a happy baby, or he loved playing with his sister. Phrases that implied, whether consciously or not, that they already knew he was gone. Investigators noticed it too. And then they looked at the security footage. Surveillance cameras from the Big Five Sporting Goods parking lot told a story that didn't match anything Rebecca had described. There was no masked man, no attacker lurking in the shadows, no violent struggle, no moment of a child being ripped from his mother's arms. Instead, what the cameras captured was eerily ordinary. Rebecca walking calmly to and from her car, completely alone. Emanuel was nowhere in sight. The parking lot was quiet, And just like that, the entire kidnapping story fell apart. On August 22nd, just 8 days after the frantic 911 call, San Bernardino County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the Haro residence with arrest warrants in hand. They weren't there to search. They weren't there to ask more questions. They were there to take Rebecca and Jake Haro into custody. The boys,
Jake and Rebecca Haro, now under arrest, accused of murder. Sheriff's deputies sealing off the entire property as investigators search for clues as to what really happened to the baby.
This is all the charges sent show. Seek waves through the small community of Cabazon. Neighbors who had seen the family around town, who had watched Rebecca push Emanuel in his stroller just weeks earlier, struggled to comprehend how two parents could be charged with killing their own baby.
Poor baby. I have kids of my own. Shame on them. I just feel bad for him every time I think about it.
This really hit home to me because I'm also a mother of 4. So to see that somebody could have felt unloving to a child like that, to me is very utterly disgusting.
The evidence against both parents was overwhelming. Even without Emanuel's body, forensic analysts had spent days processing the Haro family home, collecting digital evidence, analyzing cell phone records, and piecing together a timeline that completely contradicted Rebecca's kidnapping story. The most damning evidence came from the digital footprint both parents had left behind. Cell phone location data showed that neither Rebecca nor Jake had been at the Big 5 sporting goods store at the time Rebecca claimed the kidnapping occurred. Security cameras from multiple businesses along their route home revealed vehicles and movements that directly contradicted their statements to police. And as Rebecca and Jake were being processed into the Riverside County jail system, another horrifying detail emerged. Child Protective Services had also responded to the Haro residence that day, removing the couple's toddler daughter from the home and placing her in protective custody. This little girl, Emanuel's sister, was now an orphan through her parents' own actions. She would grow up knowing that the people who were supposed to protect her had instead destroyed her family in the most unimaginable way possible. The search for baby Emanuel's body began in the most unlikely place with his own father leading investigators through the California desert while wearing orange jail scrubs and shackles around his ankles. On August 24th, just 2 days after Rebecca and Jake's arrest, cadaver dogs and search teams converged on a desolate stretch of the Moreno Valley Badlands near Gilman Springs Road. This wasn't random. Investigators had compelling reasons to believe Emanuel's tiny body had been dumped somewhere in this harsh, unforgiving terrain. But Jake remained silent, his face expressionless as he watched dozens of searchers comb through brush and ravines, looking for any trace of the baby he was accused of killing. What investigators found instead was a father who seemed completely disconnected from the gravity of the situation. While volunteers spent hours in the blazing desert heat, desperately hoping to bring Emanuel home to his family, Jake showed no emotion, offered no assistance, gave no indication that he cared whether his son was ever found. This is a picture per KABC TV of the missing 7-month-old's dad in an orange jumpsuit with detectives searching for his son. Meanwhile, 25 minutes away at the Robert Presley Detention Center, Rebecca Haro was giving a jailhouse interview that would only deepen the mystery surrounding her son's disappearance. Speaking to reporters through the jail's phone system, Rebecca continued to maintain her innocence with a desperation that was either genuine maternal anguish or the performance of someone who had already lost touch with reality. She, stuck to her guns. I gave her every opportunity to say, well, Jake was behind it, or, I'm a victim of domestic violence. Gave her ample opportunity to change her. Court records later confirmed that the last verifiable evidence of Emanuel being alive was on August 5th, 9 full Sheshat, as before Rebecca called 911. During those 9 days, the Haros continued their daily routines. They went shopping, they interacted with neighbors, and they lived their lives as if nothing had happened. All the while, their baby was already gone. This revelation rocked not only the investigators, but the entire community of Cabazon, California. This wasn't a moment of panic. This wasn't a tragic accident. This was deliberate, calculated, cold. Riverside County District Attorney Mike Heston made the stunning announcement on August 26th. Both Rebecca and Jake were charged with murder under California Penal Code Section 187, as well as filing a false police report. And despite the fact that Emanuel's body has not been recovered, prosecutors move forward with a nobody homicide case. This is a rare and difficult legal move, but one that experts say is increasingly possible thanks to advancements in forensic science and technology. Digital evidence, surveillance footage, and phone records can now build a murder case even without physical remains. And in this case, the evidence was overwhelming. District Attorney Heston was confident. At a press conference, he told reporters, "The evidence clearly shows that Emanuel Haro is deceased and that his parents are responsible for his death."
The filing in this case reflects our belief that baby Emanuel was abused, a victim of child abuse, over time, and that eventually, because of that abuse, he succumbed to those injuries.
NBC analyst Royal Oak stated that prosecutors wouldn't move forward without a body unless they had an incredibly strong case. This confidence was further supported during the bail hearing, where the court ordered each parent held on $1 million bail. The amount reflected not only the gravity of the charges, but the fear that both parents were a flight risk. While Rebecca and Jake Haro remained behind bars, Rebecca at the Robert Presley Detention Center and Jake at the Larry D. Smith Correctional Facility, the search for baby Emanuel's body pressed on. But as authorities scoured the Moreno Valley Badlands for any trace of the missing 7-month-old, rumors began to swirl. One claim in particular, circulated by the Uvalde Foundation for kids, alleged that Jake Haro had confessed to a Perkins informant, a covert officer posing as a fellow inmate, stating he was responsible for Emanuel's death. The alleged jailhouse confession set social media ablaze, but the Riverside County District Attorney's Office declined to confirm or deny its validity. Meanwhile, nearly 1 week after their arrest on August 22nd, Jake Haro broke his silence. In an interview published by the Orange County Register on August 27th, Jake claimed that the allegations against him and Rebecca were not true at all. Speaking cautiously, he added, "I want to talk about it, but I can't. I was told don't do no press," referring to instructions from his attorney. Still, he expressed a desire to clear his name, stating that he had been completely cooperative with law enforcement throughout the investigation. He also said that his previous guilty plea in an earlier abuse case was due to financial pressure, not because he was guilty, but the records from that case tell a very different story. In 2018, Jake Haro was arrested for the brutal abuse of his then 10-week-old daughter. The infant suffered multiple broken bones and internal injuries. She was hospitalized and later diagnosed with lifelong disabilities. She is now 7 years old, bedridden, and unable to speak. The injuries were consistent with shaken baby syndrome, a violent and often fatal form of abuse. Despite the severity of those injuries, Jake did not serve prison time. Instead, in 2023, a judge granted him a suspended sentence and probation. The decision was made by a visiting judge from San Bernardino County, and District Attorney Heston didn't hold back in criticizing it. He called it an outrageous error in judgment and said that if Jake had been incarcerated, as he should have been, Emanuel might still be alive today. This single decision, a judge's leniency, may have sealed the baby's fate. But the systemic failures didn't end there. Child Protective Services also failed to intervene appropriately. Despite Jake's violent history, he was allowed to live unsupervised with 2 young children. There were no welfare checks, no home visits, no mandated restrictions. When CPS finally did arrive at the Haro home on August 22nd, they removed the toddler sister and placed her into foster care. Officials later said she had been living in unsafe conditions. The little girl's name has not been released for privacy reasons, but child advocates say her life has been forever altered. This toddler now represents something far larger, the surviving sibling who becomes collateral damage in a family tragedy. She will grow up knowing that her brother was killed, that her parents are accused of doing it, and that the system meant to protect her failed her too. And for the people of Cabazon, this realization has been unbearable. Outside the Haro home, a makeshift memorial began to grow. Stuffed animals, handwritten letters, flickering candles, and flowers lined the sidewalk. Strangers wept openly. Neighbors who had seen the family just days earlier were now questioning everything. Could they have intervened? Should they have seen the signs? The community that once waved to each other from porches now looked around in fear and guilt. It wasn't just about Emanuel anymore. It was about a collective failure. Child welfare activists are already pushing for change. California State Senator Patricia Williams announced plans to introduce new legislation that would require automatic monitoring and supervision for any parent with a violent child abuse conviction. The law would also expand communication between law enforcement and child welfare agencies, ensuring that past offenses are flagged and tracked. Emanuel's death was preventable, she said. We failed him and we cannot afford to fail another child. The legal process will be long. Prosecutors have indicated they may pursue the death penalty, which would extend the timeline significantly. Defense attorneys are expected to request separate trials and may attempt to shift blame between the two parents. Rebecca has so far maintained her original story about the kidnapping, even as the evidence crumbles around her. Jake's defense may hinge on partial cooperation in hopes of avoiding the harshest penalties. But regardless of legal strategies, the facts remain the same. Emanuel is gone, and the people accused of killing him are the very ones who should have protected him most. But Emanuel's case isn't standing alone. Just this May, 2 more children vanished, and once again, their parents' suspicious behavior on camera had everyone talking. It felt hauntingly familiar. And that's where we circle back to a case we've covered before, the Sullivan siblings.
Well, today marks 11 weeks since the disappearance of 2 children in Nova Scotia, and there still are very few answers.
My heart tells me these babies are gone. My heart tells me that.
If this is not a criminal investigation now, I'd be totally surprised.
I know the truth. I didn't kill Lily and Jack. And I just think a lot of people online they're seeking drama. That's the main thing.
On May 2nd, 2025, 6-year-old Lily Sullivan and her 4-year-old brother Jack vanished without a trace from their quiet family home in rural Landown Station, Nova Scotia. A disappearance that has since become one of the most baffling mysteries in Canadian history. The 2 children were living with their mother, Maliah Brooks Murray, their stepfather, Daniel Martel, and their infant sister, when they were suddenly reported missing with no sounds, no struggle, and no clear signs of where they could have gone. In a now viral interview, Daniel broke down in tears as he pleaded for answers. Very stressful. I mean, ever since the Friday morning when we noticed that the kids' children were gone, immediately jumped in the vehicle, surveyed all the areas, as many dirt roads, as many culverts as it could, and waited for the police to get there. What followed was an all-out search involving over 160 volunteers, RCMP officers, helicopters, drones, search dogs, and underwater teams scouring the thick woods, creeks, and dangerous terrain surrounding the area, but not a single clue was ever found. And while public attention focused on the search, a subtle moment during the mother's interview sparked a new wave of speculation. As she calmly described the morning her children went missing, many began to wonder if she was concealing more than she was saying.
I'm just staying as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home.
Now people are asking, is she a grieving mother trying to stay strong, or is she hiding something beneath that calm exterior? At the time this video is being made, the case remains unsolved, and everything you're about to hear comes from public reports, online sources, and alleged witness accounts, not confirmed facts from law enforcement. But before we dive deeper into the twists of this mystery, let's take a closer look at the family itself, and why some believe both the mother and the stepfather might know more than they're willing to admit. It all begins with Maliah Brooks Murray, born in 1998 into a McMock family in Nova Scotia. Raised by her mother, Cindy Murray, Maliah was surrounded by tradition, culture, and the teachings of her indigenous roots. But even those deep cultural ties couldn't protect her from a life shadowed by instability. By the age of 23, Maliah was already a mother to 2 children, Lily and Jack, whose father was reportedly absent from their lives. Some sources claimed he was under house arrest, while others suggested he'd simply disappeared from the picture. Nothing about that chapter of her life was clear. And then came 2023, the year she met Daniel Martel, a man 6 years older who worked at a local sawmill. The relationship moved quickly. Within months, Maliah packed up her children and moved into Daniel's secluded home on Gearlock Road, buried deep in the woods of Lansdowne Station. On the surface, it looked like a fresh start. A young couple, a new baby named Meadow, a house tucked away in nature. But neighbors weren't convinced. They described the home as eerie, with cars arriving in the middle of the night, shouting from within, and strange chemical smells seeping into the air. One neighbor chillingly recalled, "I always thought something weird was going on there, but I had no idea children lived in that house." Although Maya was registered as a stay-at-home mom, people who knew her spoke of her frequent absences, especially in the evenings. Meanwhile, Daniel, despite being employed in the lumber industry, was only known to work 1 day a week, which raised eyebrows. How were they supporting a family of 5 with almost no visible income? This question would become far more important once the investigation into the children's disappearance began. Even more troubling was the way the children were described by those who saw them. Teachers said Lily and Jack were quiet and often came to school looking tired and disengaged. Their school bus driver, Brian Ward, remembered the children sometimes falling asleep during the ride home, unusual for kids so young. They had no neighborhood friends, didn't participate in community events, and were never seen playing outside. In a tight-knit community where everyone knows everyone, Lily and Jack were practically invisible. The last week of April 2025 marked a pivotal moment in the family's timeline. Starting on April 29th, the children stopped attending school. Malia allegedly told the school that Lily had fallen ill, but no doctor's notes or medical records were ever provided. What went on inside that house in those final days remains one of the most haunting unanswered questions in the entire case. Then came May 1st, a crucial turning point. According to RCMP data released on May 28th, the children were seen in public that afternoon with family members in New Glasgow. That piece of information sent shockwaves through the community. If Lily and Jack were alive and seemingly well in public just hours before they vanished, then what happened during the 18 hours that followed? We would soon learn that on May 2nd at exactly 10 o'clock in the morning, Malahia Brooks Murray made a call to 911. Her 2 children were missing, she said, but what immediately struck dispatchers was not just the content of the call, it was the tone. Her voice was eerily calm, flat, almost rehearsed. She said, "My children are missing," with the emotionless cadence of someone reporting a broken window. When the dispatcher asked for more information, her answers were short and robotic. No shaking, no cracking voice, no signs of panic or maternal distress. Even the dispatcher noted how cold and mechanical she sounded, something rarely seen in cases involving missing toddlers, and her behavior after that call only deepened the mystery. Rather than joining the frantic community search, Malaya stayed inside, speaking with officers in the same strangely detached voice. Search and rescue teams expected a grieving mother, pleading for help, pacing with worry, sobbing in desperation. Instead, they met a woman who seemed disturbingly unaffected by the disappearance of her children. Then just 24 hours later, on May 3rd, she gave her first and only televised interview. What the public saw raised even more questions. Her posture was closed. She avoided eye contact. Her voice remained flat.
I'm just staying as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home. What happened was we woke up, I heard them playing in the next room beside us, and I was drifting in and out of sleep. And they're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them. And they happened to just get out that sliding door, and we can't hear it when it opens. And they were outside playing, but we weren't aware of it at the time. And the next thing we knew, it was quiet. And we get up, and I tell him, my partner, Daniel, I tell him, "Do you hear the kids?" And he says, "No." And we get up instantly. We're looking outside. We're looking everywhere, yelling for them. And I instantly just call 911. I just had the instinct I needed to call. They're both really go-lucky children. They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone. They're just extremely sweet kids. I appreciate the huge search effort going on right now.
But then came something far more alarming just 36 hours after her children were declared missing. While search teams were still combing the woods and volunteers were putting up flyers, Malaya logged onto Facebook. She didn't post a tribute. She didn't share their photos. She didn't even plead for help. Instead, she changed her relationship status from in a relationship to single. Within minutes, her profile photo was updated too, this time showing a posed, smiling selfie. It was as if nothing had happened, but the post that followed disturbed everyone. She wrote, "I want my babies. Home. My children are not shy. They'll go with anyone. They don't understand stranger danger. Someone must have taken them. To the average person, it sounded off. To law enforcement and criminal psychologists, it was deeply troubling. She wasn't just stating facts. She was telling the world exactly how vulnerable her children were. In essence, she was handing out a blueprint for how easy it would have been to abduct them. Experts called it one of the most reckless and bizarre public posts ever seen in an active missing persons case. And yet, despite everything, she didn't ask people to share photos or describe what they were wearing or beg strangers to keep an eye out. Her post didn't sound like a cry for help. It sounded like a narrative being planted. Then came the most surreal moment of all. On May 4th, during a scheduled search briefing at Landown Station Road, Malaya stood up mid-presentation and quietly walked out. She didn't panic. She didn't break down. She walked calmly into an ambulance parked outside. At first, people feared she'd collapsed, but no, it was a panic attack. According to multiple witnesses, she looked fine one minute and gone the next. Some believe that something revealed during the briefing may have contradicted her story, something that came too close to the truth. After that, she was gone. With her infant daughter in tow, Malaya left the area with her mother, Cindy Murray, without notifying search coordinators or leaving any contact information. She didn't say goodbye to Daniel Martel, the man she had lived with. She didn't speak to the press. She didn't appear at another search event again. The vacuum she left behind became a problem. While Daniel continued cooperating with authorities, giving interviews and speaking with police, Malaya cut off all public involvement. When journalists tried reaching out to her in the weeks that followed, she simply said, "The RCMP advised me not to speak to the media," but experts pointed out police don't tell desperate mothers to stay quiet. They encourage them to keep the public talking. That kind of silence is usually reserved for suspects, not victims. And sure enough, her status in the investigation quietly shifted. She was no longer just the grieving mother. She became a person of interest. She moved in with her mother to Wentworth, nearly an hour away from where her children vanished. Not only did she leave behind her home in Poss Rutner, she removed herself entirely from the scene, both physically and emotionally. It wasn't just strange. To many, it was unforgivable. Even her own community noticed. The Sepeknikatik First Nation, to which Lily and Jack belonged, released emotional public statements begging for answers and supporting the search. But in every statement, there was not a single mention of Malaya. In Mi'kmaq tradition, families and communities stay united during times of pain. But her absence and her people's silence about her spoke louder than any press release. Then came June 2nd. In the town of Stellarton, a public vigil was held. Hundreds of people came together lighting candles and releasing lanterns into the night sky. Children who had never met Lily and Jack clutched teddy bears and prayed for their return. Parents cried. Strangers hugged. Lanterns floated upward, symbolizing a community's shared hope. But once again, Maylee wasn't there.
Tonight is about saying a prayer, and we're going to light the way home for them.
A paper lantern for 4-year-old Jack, another for 6-year-old Lily, released into the twilight sky as a beacon of hope.
Illuminate the path for Lily and Jack. Guide their footsteps home.
While these unknown people stood in the cold crying, for Lily and Jack, their own mother, Malaya Brooks Murray, remained at home. Her absence wasn't just noticed, it was felt. Some attendees openly voiced their anger and confusion. How can we feel more than their own mother, one mourner asked. It was a question that lingered long after the candles burned out, but the signs had already been there on her social media. An analysis of Malaya's Facebook and Instagram posts from the days leading up to the disappearance revealed a troubling pattern. Her last few posts before May 2nd hinted at emotional distress and cryptic mentions of needing change. Darker tones, distant captions, and vague references to starting over painted a picture of a woman unraveling or perhaps planning something she couldn't say out loud. Then came the most disturbing part. Within 48 hours of her children vanishing, Malaya began referring to them as angels. Not missing, not lost, not taken. Angels, a word most parents avoid at all costs unless they've reached the unthinkable. For most, angel is reserved for memorials, used carefully, whispered, months, or even years after the truth is known. But for Malaya, it came immediately, almost as if grief had skipped every natural step and jumped straight into acceptance, or worse, as if she already knew they were never coming back. Digital forensics also noted that shortly after May 2nd, Malaya's entire online presence began to shift. She deleted multiple family photos. She altered her privacy settings. She stopped posting about motherhood. It was as if she was intentionally distancing herself from her role as Lillian Jack's mother, as if the life she had built, including the children, was being carefully erased. And then came the most sinister detail of all. When RCMP publicly confirmed the children were seen in New Glasgow on May 1st, it became clear that Malaya already knew about this sighting. Investigators later revealed that surveillance footage of the children existed. Yet Malahia never brought it up, never referenced it, and never used it to support the search. Any innocent mother would have clung to those frames, proof their children were alive, proof that hope remained. But she said nothing. That silence didn't just raise eyebrows, it was deafening. Because if she knew they were seen, if she knew they looked healthy, and if she believed in their return, why hide it? Why withhold that key piece of information unless she feared what else those final hours might reveal? By June 2025, the public image of Malaya Brooks Murray had shattered. What remained was the chilling profile of a woman whose every action, from the eerily emotionless interview to her vanished online presence to the cold single status update, stood in direct contrast to everything an innocent mother should be. Her story became a case study. Literally, law enforcement agencies across Canada and beyond began using the Sullivan case in training modules, analyzing her interviews, her digital trail, her public reactions as a textbook example of how behavior can betray guilt long before evidence surfaces. Because this isn't just the story of two missing children.